What's going on, guys? So into this video, we are going to be talking about the Leica Summicron 35mm f2 Apo lens. We're going to be talking about my everyday shooter, a lens that I've been shooting for over a year, almost a year and a half, day in, day out, a lens that I cannot put down, a lens that is glued to my Leica M11 Monochrom. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing a lot of images. Most of them, they are going to be black and white, and also tell you why this lens has been, for my style of photography, my perfect choice. Let's go. Let's actually get started and let's talk about the Leica Summicron 35mm f2 Apo lens. Now, this one has been, in my opinion, one of Leica's most technically advanced designs ever. This lens, as you can see right now, it is very small. It is built like a tank and it performs like any of the other Leica lenses that I've shot with before. Obviously, when talking about the technicality of the optical performance of this lens, I think the Leica has pushed to the limits with this lens. Now let's talk a little bit about some specs. I list some of them right here so I don't bore you with all of them. But we were talking about a lens that it has an optical formula composed by 10 elements in 5 groups. Now this lens also features an 11 bladed aperture, as you can see, and it results into a very smooth bokeh balls when you shoot this lens wide open. Now, talking about the construction of this lens is built like a tank. If we actually start from the front, the aperture goes from f2 all the way to f16, and it does it in half stops increment. And when it comes to the focusing ring, this lens does something pretty unique. It goes all the way from infinity to 0.3 meters. This is, as far as I know, the only Leica lens that can actually go that close. But going from infinity all the way to 0.3 is where this lens actually really shines. Take a look at this, 0.3 meters. And as a result of that, this lens has pretty much a 270-degree turn of that focusing tab. And this video is sponsored by All Crown camera straps and accessories right here in Miami, Florida. Now take a look at this Trail Flex adjustable flat rope strap that allows you to go from 32 inches chest carry all the way to 58 inches for carry around the waist or even below. Designed for the everyday carrier, this camera strap is minimalist to be light, easy to carry, and super comfortable. If you want to learn more about our products, go to allcrown.com. And if you're ready to order, follow the link down in the description for 10% on your first order. Now, when you go from infinity to 0.7 meters, this lens is going to have a detent, and this is a design that we have seen on some of the other modern Leica lenses. And then when you push it a little bit more, the lens will actually spin all the way to 0.3 meters. Now, when it comes to its construction and size, this lens is going to be pretty small in my opinion. It has a little bit of heft, and I want to actually show you right next to the Summicron version 5. In fact, I'm going to remove it from the camera and let you guys see both the lenses side by side. I usually tend to have UV filters to protect the optics, specifically this lens, which I actually pay a pretty penny for this lens. So it is not a cheap lens, but when it comes to the size, you can see that both lenses are gonna be a little bit similar. You know, the Apo Summicron being a little bit larger, but not but much. And when it comes to weight, it weighs a little bit more. You know, I'm gonna be listing the specs right here so you can check them out. Now let's continue talking about this lens because, like I mentioned before, it is a lens that had actually helped me refine my street photography. So 20 and 50 has been a must for me, and 21 kind of like the ultra wide angle. But the first time I actually shot with this lens, I was at the Leica store in Miami. So I took a couple of pictures. I didn't pay much attention. You know, I did a couple of tests and I went home, and then I decided to put the car on the computer. And when I was revealing those pictures, I was like, wow. And at that moment, I knew that I was gonna go back to the store and purchase this lens. So I paid around $8,000 at that time. And right now, you can get this lens for about $6,500 in the used market. Now, I got this lens pristine, not a single scratch mark, but like I mentioned before, I've been carrying this lens day in, day out, and now, you know, it has a couple of scratches. but to be honest with you, it is a lens that I am going to keep, and I don't mind any of the scuffs that this lens can have from heavy use. Now, I have had zero problem with this lens. This lens never came loose, and this is something that, you know, sometimes I notice with some of the Leica's lenses after heavy use, they start getting a little bit loose, but this one, again, I carry 7 days a week, day in, day out, and this lens performs just like the first day. All right, so let's talk about the images that I am able to capture with this lens. And because of this lens and because of the minimum focusing distance, I actually pretty much now can leave my 28 and 50 millimeters behind and just rely only in one lens. But I actually find out that 35 is where I find a perfect balance when it comes to perspective for my street photography. And even though I own other 35 millimeter lenses, like you can see right here, and I've shot with them, there are several reasons why sometimes, you know, I never wanted to commit to any of these lenses exclusively for my street photography, and I always thought that going a little bit wider and having a 50 was going to be a better deal for me. But with this lens, I am also able to leave the 50 millimeters behind because I love to do a lot of portraiture when I do street photography, as you can see in some of these pictures. But the fact that this lens can go all the way to 0.3 meters, it does allow me to capture amazing portraits with gray background separation. And take a look at the bokeh. When you shoot this lens wide open, it is really, really smooth. It is as smooth as a Summilux, but not as screamy. And I think that, you know, I find being that the perfect kind of like balance between 3D pop, background separation without, you know, 100% obliterating and having a gigantic blur in your images. Now I'm gonna install the lens hood, and this is something that I also discovered with this lens. I've never liked to carry lenses with lens hood, but there is a very simple reason why I carry this lens with a lens hood, and it is the fact that this is the most expensive Leica lens that I own, and I don't want to jeopardize, you know, banging this lens or, you know, damaging the optics. So for that reason alone, this lens has a UV filter and the lens hood all the times. And to be honest with you, this lens hood looks really, really, really good. Take a look at this. So let's talk about sharpness, because when it comes to sharpness, this lens is gonna have sharpness all across the frame. Whether you shoot this lens at f2, whether you shoot this lens at f5.6, this lens is going to be overly sharp. Now, the one thing that you're gonna notice that this lens has vignetting, and I think the vignetting goes all the way up to f5.6. Being an apochromatic lens, most of the time you are going to assume that vignetting is not gonna be there, but it is there. This lens is now shot in the Leica M11 Monochrom. Yes, shooting an Apo lens on a monochrome sensor kind of like sounds like defeating the purpose, but to be honest with you, I never bought a lens because of the apochromatic faculties. I don't mind chromatic aberration, and I embrace them when I used to shoot in color. But the reason why I like this lens is because number one, the size, number two, the flexibility. You know, the flexibility of going wide at 35 millimeters, backing off a little bit and getting something similar to what I was capturing with my Summicron 28, but also now being able to capture portraits with amazing, background separation and 3D pop. And when it comes to the micro contrast that you can get from this lens is the pure depiction, in my opinion, of what micro contrast is right now. Zooming in into textures reveal a world that you wouldn't even imagine that it was there. So shooting this lens with high megapixel resolution cameras, I think that this is kind of like where this lens shines, because it has such a great resolving power that when you pair it with a camera, whether it is color or monochrome with 60 megapixels, you could crop almost infinitely with this lens. And this lens will retain all the details in pure sharpness. Even things that are, all the way far back, if you focused or if you have your lens in infinity, that is going to be overly sharp even at f2. So now let me actually compare it to the Summicron version 5, which is the one that I was shooting before this lens a lot. And this lens is amazing. I think that if you're looking for a Summicron I think this version is gonna offer you a great balance on image quality, a great balance on very soft bokeh. But of course, this lens goes to 0.7, and sometimes, just feel that extra going all the way to 0.3 for portraiture, it does draws the difference between both of them. Also, there's a big difference when it comes to the price of the regular Summicron version 5. But again, an amazing lens, and it would be kind of like in the Summicron, an option that I would consider right before the Apo Summicron 35mm. So guys, this is gonna be it for today. So if you wanna hear anything specific about this lens, comment down below. I'll be happy to create a video for a specific topic regarding this lens, because there are gonna be a lot of videos coming about this beautiful lens right here. So I'll see you in the next one.